Day 14 in the Journey of Learning. I will be configuring the routing features in the core of our network, which are our layer 3 switches. So let's get started. As always, I like to script or pre-plan everything. This allows things to be more efficient. And we're going to begin by first logging into the router. The switch. And let's go into global config mode. A few spaces so we can see. The first thing I do is to turn on the routing feature. So let's enable routing in the layer 3 switch. The next thing I want to do is to activate a dynamic routing protocol. And the dynamic routing protocol that I'm going to enable or use will be EIGRP. Why do I want to use a dynamic routing protocol as opposed to a static routing protocol? Static will remain the same. So if it's static, it doesn't change. If something was to happen where your static route is no longer valid, so you have some changes in your network and that static route is no longer valid, how will the network know not to send traffic that way? It will not know. So it will continue to try to use that route even though that route is no longer valid. It's like having a car on a road and say the road up ahead is um, washed out or the bridge is out or something of that nature. You need something to let that driver know that, hey, this road is no longer valid. You cannot take this road. You will have to take a different route. So static routes will not allow you to know that that particular route is no longer valid. But what will allow that? A dynamic routing protocol. So when things happen, the dynamic routing protocol will let you know that, hey, this route is no longer valid. Well, it won't let you know, it'll let the network know. This route is no longer valid. This is the route to get to this particular destination at this point. And so when changes happen in the network, you want that dynamic feature. Now, there are times where you also want a static feature as well. So really what takes place in a lot of networks is that we use a combination of dynamic routes and static routes. And that is what I've done in this particular project. So what I'm doing is to first turn on EIGRP and specify a number. So I'm using 1. It takes us into EIGRP. And so now I will let it know what networks that I wanted to keep track of. That's pretty much in layman's terms. So as you can see, these are the first 3 are the VLANs that we created earlier. The last 3 allows for um, access to the internet. So this is actually connected to my home router. And so from the VLANs, we then need to go to the home router portion of my network at home. And from there, the traffic can reach the internet. So let's go ahead and just copy and paste all of that. Next, I'm going to enter my static routes. Now this static route is the network management. So that's VLAN 5. And here we have a default route. And that's the second one that you see. That's the default route. Then we have a couple of routes advising the network how to reach the 10.10.5, 253 network, and 254 network. And I'm telling it which network that it would use. Oh, you can also place the interface here. So to validate that, we will enter show IP route, and we see that we now have those routes. So let's look at all of our EIGRP routes. We're going to show IP route, EIGRP, and these are all our routes that have been learned via EIGRP. But what if you wanted to check the static routes? So these are all of the routes, but now let's check the static routes. And what if you don't know the command for that? What can you do? Question mark, static. Let's clear the screen. Static, and these are our static routes that we entered earlier. And so if something was to take place in the network, in fact, let's demonstrate that. So I'm going to show you how, I'm going to demonstrate exactly how dynamic routing works. Let's clear the screen. Let's do show route EIGRP. Now those are our routes. So I'm going to disconnect one of the cables in our networks, and as you can see, that interface went down. And so now we should see a difference in the routes that are available. And as you see, here's the difference. It's letting you know that it's letting the network know that hey, this one is no longer available. That's no longer valid. Just this one. Let's reconnect that. Okay, the interface is up again. That's because I just connected the cable. And you see that route is back. Vice versa. We're going to disconnect another cable. So it's now you see that it's the opposite one that's available now. No longer is the 2/0/1 available. The 1/0/1 is available. Let's add them back. Let's place that connection back. State is changed to up. And now as you can see, we have both of those routes available. The same thing would happen in this case as well. If these routes become unavailable, you will not see them listed in your route. So anytime you're wondering like, why is my traffic